With Quant, I had mentioned it last time. I think one thing I really liked about eGMAT was the pace method, like
Yeah,
with the
the pace
diagnostic,
feature. Yes.
yeah, and the just like things that you really need to focus on highlight.
Mm,
Because I was on a time crunch. Like
mm,
from the time I enrolled and started my prep to my first attempt, I had like 28 days. But when the platform itself helps you really just highlight, okay, this is what you need to refer to move on, that's perfect. Genuinely do not underestimate the importance of an error log.
mm,
Watch the videos of maintaining error log. Another mistake I made the first time is that I kept the day prior to my exam as a day that I'm going to go through my error logs.
mm.
I do not think that's how error logs work. It's something I realized later. You are supposed to check onto them like once in every 2 days. So the very ability again to constantly keep looking out for the keywords or something that master comprehension really makes you
Mm.
focus on. Like that entire change of direction, change of tone, and looking out for, especially in an entire stimulus or a prompt that you're going to get in CR, even in RC for that matter of fact, looking out for what the conclusion is
Mm.
or just what the premise is should be like a very main skill you need to have. The question answer, the doubt question answer section at the bottom.
Yeah.
You just go through that. There has to be someone who has made the same mistake that you have made and who has asked it as a doubt. Or
Mm.
you yourself can also ask that, hey, I did it this way. Why didn't this work out? Or whatever. Like, I've never had to wait for more than a day to get a reply.
Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another debrief session with eGMAT. Today, we have with us Kshitija, who scored a 705 on her recent GMAT attempt. So, welcome, Kshitija, and thanks for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Abba.
So, Kshitija, I believe what makes your story all the more impressive and maybe an inspiration to a lot of students is the verbal score, which is a V88 and a 99 percentile. That really, really stands out. So, a huge congratulations on that too.
Thank you.
So before we move forward and dive into your GMAT prep and the entire journey, which I know has its own ups and downs, why don't you give us a quick introduction to yourself and your background, and then we can get started.
Sure. So, hello, everyone. I My name is Kshitija, as Abba just introduced. My background is in computer engineering. I did my master's in computer science from New York University. I've worked in software engineering at Amazon and Google before, and then I first decided to wanting to pursue B school last year. So I actually gave a GMAT attempt last year, which was not the focus edition; it was the old edition. And that's when I was like really putting my thoughts together as to what my goals were. I realized it was to join and expand my family business. So
Hmm.
then I decided to leave my job this March end and I moved back to India to invest time in that, like a year of learning before actually to get into B school. This is like my year to know what gaps am I trying to really fill through my
Mhm.
B school.
Yes, yes. And uh, how did you cling on to this idea of GMAT in the first place?
So I'll be honest, as much as I had gotten the chance to work in the industries that I really, really wanted to, it was only after a certain time in there did it click to me that maybe I want to do something more managerial,
Hmm.
or which is not just me working in silo, working on bits of codes all day long. And I think the biggest driving factor was just the amount of people I got to meet while at Google through the different clubs and learn people's stories. And I learned that there is a lot that you not just learn through B School in theoretically,
Hmm.
because that's something you might also find on Coursera or something. It's
Hmm.
more about the entire experience and an experience that's worth having once in a life. And that is very transformative to the way I would be looking at myself, my career, and me owning it. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, why GMAT per se and not GRE was because I'm certain I want to apply for MBA. So there is no
Hmm.
keeping my options open. Also, GRE I had given in the past when I did apply for my MS.
Hmm.
I got like a 328 then. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember how hard it was to go through the verbal section, especially the vocab.
Mm.
So the focus I did in GMAT especially is so much logic driven that I was like, okay, this
Oh,
makes sense.
yeah. And it worked out for you. It worked out wonders for you, right?
A
So
lot
talking
of
about
notes.
Yes. So talking about the journey and let's deep dive into the sections, right? So when you started off your journey with us, the platform, you took the diagnostic mock where you scored close to a 595, right?
Mhm.
And which indicated that there were certain gaps because you were a little bit out of touch also with your studies from your previous GMAT. And that's completely okay, right? So why don't you walk us through what were the gaps that you could identify and how did you go about filling them up?
Okay. So when I took the mock, I remember, I think it was the 11th of August or something. I
Mm,
had already paid for and registered for my GMAT, which was
mm,
a month into the future. So 13th September was my first attempt. And the reason my timeline was so tight was because I wanted to come on this meditation retreat that I am on. So I
yes.
wanted to give it before that, and I wanted to make it to the R2 applications. When I gave that mock, last time when I gave the original GMAT, I got a 700.
Mm,
And in the IR section, I got a full score. So
mm,
I gave it with a feeling that how bad can it be?
mm,
You know, the mock was a very good reality check to realize that it's very easy to forget quant concepts that you might have studied even a year back.
mm.
Now, the IR, I would say, like the data's sufficiency versus the IR, I think there is a difference in that too.
Yeah.
Like the data sufficiency as an entire section is
Data insights.
considerably, yeah, sorry,
Mm,
data insights is considerably, why would I say data structures? But okay,
mm,
it's considerably harder
yeah.
than how the IR was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sentence correction. I did not realize that by taking out sentence correction, critical reasoning becomes very important.
Mm,
And critical reasoning can't be just like, I'm going to read the prompt, I'm going to read the options and what makes sense to me. Now, critical reasoning is the core of not just verbal, I would say, but also data structure, data insights.
mm-hmm.
Um, so that was reality check. I would be honest. And then the very next day I signed up for eGMAT because I was like, okay, wait, I've already scheduled my test. I really need to have a structured approach towards going about it. It doesn't seem as easy as I think it seems.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. Now, talking about your verbal specifically, because see, at this point, you are at the peak, right? We're talking about a V88, we're talking about the 99 percentile, but starting with a slightly modest score because you started off with a V80 in the diagnostic mock, in the Sigma X mock that you took, right? So, when we talk about this entire jump, what were the key skills that you actually developed along the way that made this difference for you?
Okay. I think there were multiple. I would
Mm,
begin with saying that not just the mock test, but even my very first attempt of GMAT, which was the 13th of September, I got a 79 on verbal.
mm,
And my verbal score was ranging somewhere between 78 to 84 on mocks because of it being complete fluke, like a luck factor. Like the luck factor was very, very strong
mm,
on that section for me. And my only focus the second time around, and I think you were mentoring me and we realized that verbal is my pain point. My
mm,
only focus the second time around was to really, really understand the logic behind it. It
mm.
isn't that luck driven.
Yeah.
It was very easy for me to earlier think that, okay, wait, there are two options. And if I select A, but the answer key says B, it's just like, okay, my
Mm-hmm.
bad. But
Yeah.
no, there can be only one correct answer. And there are multiple factors playing. So I think what helped me was identifying these different factors. Like there are some quantifying words that can create a difference, or there is some one word at the end that can create a difference. There's a lot of things.
Mm,
So I really, really focused on also what I realized, another thing, the importance of reading the question in
mm,
critical reasoning. It is so easy to read something, it's a strengthening question, and somehow you are on the option four, and by then you've forgotten it's a strengthening question, and you're like, oh my God, that's an amazing weakener. And just go for it. That's a very dumb
mm,
thing. Even if I know at some point people stop doing that, but for me, it was still happening. And I also realized that there are some question types that I'm really good at.
mm-hmm.
Say, for example, I can really pre think.
Mm,
It is like Weakener, for
Mm-hmm.
example. I can definitely pre-think. Paradoxical questions, I can definitely pre-think. But boldface, I cannot pre-think.
Mm.
Or the slight difference between justify an argument or support an argument versus I think there's one more. There are three which are very evaluate an argument kind
Yeah.
of a thing. The slight differences here and there, I couldn't really pre-think.
Mm.
Um, Another thing I realized was that when I was approaching, if I'm pre-thinking, and I think this e-GMAT also really tells you that if you're pre-thinking on a question which has multiple possibilities,
Yeah.
don't be stuck by the
Mm.
three things that you have pre-thought. For me,
Yes.
what used to happen is that, okay, here I've pre-thought that hypothetically the crops are imported and something, 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 okay?
Yeah.
Now I'm only trying to find that. And if I
Yeah.
don't find that, I will sit there wasting 3 minutes, try to make
Mm.
sure every answer choice, every option is making sense to me.
Yeah.
Try to develop this inherent, like practiced a lot. I
Mm.
think I completed all the semantic quizzes for
Mm.
CR for sure. I really, really practiced a lot. And every point in time when I was like really not understanding a particular option choice or not understanding how to approach a question, I would maintain a very clear error log. Like the error log that I've maintained is in such absolute detail, trying to make sure I really, really put in words what exactly went wrong in my thinking and how
Yeah.
my thinking should have been,
Yeah.
and then kept referring it. I think the second time around, I completely sidelined data structures, data insights, and quant.
Yeah.
Verbal was my only focus because I was really bad at it.
Mm.
I'll be honest. But does
Yes.
that answer the question, or that was like too vague?
No, no, no. That did answer the question because it helps us understand that, how did you structure and go about solving the CR questions, right?
Yeah.
How did the pre-thinking approach help you? But at the same time, it also gives us an understanding that while pre-thinking is a framework, at the end of the day, it just equips you with extracting the logical essence of the question stem. Right? You
Yes.
cannot go without that. You really need to understand the question stem 200% before you get to the answer choices.
Yeah, when I say 200%, it's like you read the prompt and you're like, okay, this is
Yeah.
conditional reasoning. Okay, this is
Yes.
causal reasoning. Okay, this is
Yes.
this, like that level. And I completely forgot. Verbal also has reading comprehension. My issue with reading comprehension is if the topic was aligned with things that my background
Yeah.
has touched upon, I'm amazing at it. If the topic is like biology
Mm.
or some law related thing regarding like history, especially American history, I would just not be able to do it, and then I'm like stuck at random details of it and words, and I'm not making sense of it. With reading comprehension, I really, really understood that how I'm doing on the question really
Mm.
depends on the type of the passage.
Yeah.
So the second time around, I tried to practice in a more structured format, because what used to happen is when I'm practicing, right, whatever things that we have learned, that I'm going to keep writing notes on the side per
Mm.
paragraph, the tone I'll keep understanding, the flow I'll keep noting down. If the topic is something I know, I would just not do it.
Mm.
And if the topic is something I don't know, then I'll start doing it in detail and like waste 5 minutes just reading
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
question.
Mm.
So the second time around, I was like, my approach towards reading comprehension needs to be topic agnostic.
Mm.
I have decided this is the things that I'm going to jot down, and this is the approach I'm going to follow. This has to be the approach I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
really helped me because the first time I tell you, um, I got some vague topics on my actual exam, and I had no idea what to do with them. They made no sense to me. So, yeah, I think reading comprehension also really, it's very easy to feel a sense of affinity towards a passage and be like, okay, this seems nice. I'm going to solve this. And then
Yeah.
be like, this seems like something I don't want to solve. Don't
Yes.
do
Yeah, right, right, right. And I think what
it.
you just said is a very common issue that a lot of students face. That, when you are familiar with certain kind of topics, because that is something that you have personal interest in, right? You tend to do well because those terms and a lot of phrases are very familiar to you. But if it's something that is out of your zone, you tend to panic. But that's what the whole course is about, the strategies is about, and the process is all about, right? Equipping you with the tools. Yes, you were
Yeah,
saying
I'll add
something.
something there. Talking about interest. I think the course very specifically even mentions that whatever you are reading, take interest into it.
Hmm.
Like at the end of every paragraph, ask yourself, where do you think this paragraph is tending towards?
Yeah.
And the first time you even listen to that video, I'll be honest, the first time I heard it in that video, I'm like, okay, no, no, that seems like a time wasting strategy. I can't be waiting after every passage to ask myself that.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that when the topic is something that you're interested in, you very subconsciously ask yourself that.
Hmm.
So I think initially, okay, it might be a time-driven effort, but I think the goal here is for it to be a very subconscious act.
True.
And
True.
taking that test really just take, because I really don't think by the time someone has decided to apply for B school,
Yeah.
they are just bad at comprehension. I mean,
Hmm.
they have read so much. Everyone. I
Yeah.
don't think there is anyone who is being like, oh, I don't know how to read a passage and answer questions on that.
Hmm.
So I think the main issue here is that, yeah, there will be passages you're not going to like. And how
Hmm.
are you going to still go about it?
Yes.
Is, yeah.
Right. And the last time that we were having a conversation, you had also mentioned some of the skills that you developed in master comprehension, which helped you in CR and RC indirectly, right? So, why don't you elaborate more on that?
Sure. So, I think the way you approach reading in a very time crunched format, like, like it's a timed exam. So it's
Hmm.
not like I'm going to read and then I'm going to be like, oh, okay, okay, okay. So the flow just shifted from a positive to negative. Okay, now let me reread and understand. It's not that.
Hmm.
So the very ability again to constantly keep looking out for the keywords or something that master comprehension really makes you
Hmm.
focus on. Like that entire change of direction, change of tone, change, and looking out for, especially in an entire stimulus or a prompt that you're going to get in CR, even in RC for that matter of fact, looking out for what the conclusion is
Hmm.
or just what the premise is should be like a very main skill you need to have. Like in CR, for example, if you don't know what the conclusion is and you think something else is the conclusion, whatever you're solving is just plain simple wrong. You're never going to get it right.
Yeah.
So then these skills, I think master comprehension really helps you get you to. I would really say that course is really is very strong because it's like the quant, like you have quant 101s.
Hmm.
It's like that for verbal.
Yep.
Like it's like you need to have it even before you dive deep into
The
anything.
basics of CR and
Yeah.
RC respectively. Right.
And
Right.
I would be honest, I did not expect that about data insights until I did not start taking mocks and stuff for this attempt.
Yeah.
That data insights is very different from IR. So for
Hmm.
anyone who's given the previous exam, don't get confused. And data insights right now also has such a heavy, heavy load on verbal
Yep.
and critical reasoning. Like it's mind blowing.
Yes. So now since you mentioned about that there is a huge difference and you are coming from a place who is given the GMAT classic and now given the GMAT focus as well, right? And done decently well in both the tests. GMAT focus definitely you've hit the 705, but in GMAT classic also a 700, right? So when we talk about the major difference, do you think that the way that you approached the IR and DI also there were drastic changes in your strategies?
uh, I think the for the last attempt I did not study for IR.
Hmm.
It's very normal for us to think, okay, I just went, like, whenever I was giving official mocks, it was just a part of the mock. So, okay, I had solved questions, not like I'm solving it for the first time on the actual exam.
Hmm.
But we have a natural tendency to think that if it's not being counted towards our main score, why do I worry about it?
Hmm.
And there was sentence correction that time to
Hmm.
focus on. So I naturally did not focus on IR. Now that data insights is playing a very equal and a entirely one-third role in your actual score,
Hmm.
you tend to focus on it more.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, we both were aligned on this. Somehow, I've not spent a lot of time studying for data insights.
Hmm.
Uh, it came very naturally to me to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But yes, I did realize when I was solving that there is a set of common mistakes that you're going to make.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
I remember this one data table which was about like library books in a library, and like which and then constraints, like this is the max price you want to pay and these number of books, blah blah, country constraints on the category. And the
Hmm.
question was that how which all books do you think this person would have been buying? And there were questions for the like will this book be in her buy list? Not no buy list. There was a column there regarding copies and inventory. And
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple of books, like I think there was just one book that had zero there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had not considered that, that book would have definitely been a part of the inventory. I totally missed out on that column. Something as small as realizing that I ignore columns that have nothing to do with, I don't even read columns or read data that has got nothing to do with the question asked. But
Mm.
that column completely changes my answer.
Yeah.
So there were like this very common set of mistakes that I was making, A.
Mm.
And B, I realize that I take a lot of time when I see a complicated graph or a complicated flow chart or something that I've not seen before.
Mm.
So my strategy this time was just to solve so many questions that I am aware of the mistakes and I've
Mm.
made it before the exam. So on the exam, I know that, hey, listen, this now you're going to do this. So just
Mm.
don't do this.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that catches me off guard. That being said, there was still like I think one question only that kind of caught me off guard. But that's another thing I learned during the strategy. I think we are discussing the letting go.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll come to that a little later. But yeah, my data insights strategy was that
Yeah.
just be more aware, like just expose yourself to as many types of questions and as many types of mistakes you're capable of making, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I think you really well put it. Like, how did you approach the DI, right? Now, once, since we have just spoken about your verbal and quants, let's talk about verbal and DI. Let's talk about the quants as well, right? So, what were the challenges that you faced in quants, and what was your approach in quants?
Okay, so Quant, again, I approached it with so much of confidence because the last time I remember, I think I just scored 1 point less than scoring the full
Hmm.
in when I got given the previous GMAT. And generally, it's like a tendency, you're an engineer. You just
Hmm.
think, okay, Quant is my thing. I don't know if it's just me or have other people also noticed that. But for GMAT focus, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong because you are the one planning the entire material. I feel like GMAT quant also has a huge the GMAT focus quant
Hmm.
also has a lot to do with logic more
Okay.
than the previous GMAT did. Somehow. Like there
Okay.
was I somehow I felt like last time it was a little more direct, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. I don't know. The
I
problem
think
solved.
Yeah, I think I would agree to that to a certain extent, but I feel the way that the algorithm works and the scoring, right? I think in the classic, it was much more easy to a certain extent to get to that Q49, Q50. But whereas in the GMAT focus, it becomes slightly more tough. And even that one question on sometimes a medium can just disrupt your, entire score. Right. So I believe that, while the logic part and the way the questions are set are almost the same, but yes, definitely the difficulty level or the way that the algorithm works is slightly stricter, which makes it slightly difficult to maybe score.
Yes, I agree. And I like for example, the first GMAT focus attempt that I gave a
Hmm.
month prior to my second one or 3 weeks
Yes.
prior to my second one,
Yeah.
I got an 88 or 90.
Yeah.
But when I got the actual report, I had just gotten one question wrong.
Hmm.
So then penalize 2 points for one question is a little like I was like, okay, this seems very, very strict.
Hmm.
Which is actually how it is
Yeah.
for the new focus attempt. So with Quant, I had mentioned it last time. I think one thing I really liked about eGMAT was the pace method, like
Yeah.
with the
The pace
diagnostic
feature.
test,
Yes.
yeah, and the just like things that you really need to focus on highlight.
Hmm.
Because I was on a time crunch, like
Hmm.
from the time I enrolled and started my prep to my first attempt, I had like 28 days.
Yeah.
And from my first attempt to second attempt, I knew that you cannot give a GMAT another attempt within 14 or 15 days. So I
Hmm.
legit scheduled it on the 17th or 18th day.
Yeah.
So I couldn't have afforded going through everything. But when a platform itself helps you really just highlight, okay, this is what you need to refer to move on, that's perfect.
Hmm.
And then I think you can even check Scholaranium for me. I have given a lot of semantic quizzes for Quant. That
Yes.
used to so Quant I genuinely like.
Hmm.
And I used to get exhausted when doing verbal. So
Hmm.
I had decided anytime I want to take a break from verbal, I'm going to go give a semantic quiz on Quant and
Hmm.
just loved the graph. format. I think I did mention that to you. Love the
Yeah,
graph format in Scholarinium. My entire goal was to constantly make
it's
sure
right here.
that,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, my entire goal was to constantly make sure I just like cross that threshold
Hmm.
and keep at it. I think I also gave a lot of hard ones.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, that was my main focus, solve as many questions as possible.
Hmm. Right. And what were the common? Because see, when we are looking at your WP cementing at this point, right? Here, when you took your first quiz, you were at a 50%. And by the end of it, we are talking about 90% consecutively, right?
Yeah.
So, what were the common mistakes that you were making in your quant journey that, you identified and you were able to, take those right corrective actions and move forward?
Okay. I think that was just a big basics, like okay, formulas or
Hmm.
approach methods or
Hmm.
something, just basics or something as small as okay, if it's like an inequation or like something, there are multiple ways to solve it. So just like
Hmm.
quickly figuring out which method seems like the fastest and
Hmm.
all of that. A lot of first cementing quizzes I took, I also couldn't make it in the last question.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
realizing that it's not just about getting it right, but it's also about getting it right as fast as possible. I had really forgotten those basics.
Hmm.
So I would say if anyone just has had a quant background,
Yeah.
don't get too disheartened by low semantic scores initially. The reason being that if you really go and like review every answer, every video, and generally, okay, I also mentioned this to you, the question answer, the doubt question answer section at the bottom.
Yeah.
If you just go through that, there has to be someone who has made the same mistake that you have made and who has asked it as a doubt. Or
Hmm.
you yourself can also ask that, hey, I did it this way. Why didn't this work out? Or whatever. These things also happen in permutation combination statistics and all a lot. That you think you got it right. Because there are not a lot of formulas in that
Yeah.
topic. So you really think you've gotten it right. So where did my thinking go wrong? And eGMAT is amazing at replying back at like a record time. Like I've never had to wait for more than a day to get a reply on something. So basically what I'm trying to say is if anyone is like disheartened, don't get disheartened by lower scores.
Yes.
Or you will just realize within 2 or 3 more cementing quizzes and maintaining an error log that it was just like school level basics that you've forgotten.
Hmm.
Someone just has to reteach you again, like
Yeah.
all of that has happened, but the minute you are done with it and you see a similar question, you will get it right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because see, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, these cementing quizzes, while we put those thresholds so that you can check your ability, but they are at the end of the day a learning mechanism, right? They are there for your improvement. This is still not the final test or the mocks. They are just one getting you one step closer to your actual goal,
I
right?
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And I also think like I used to get disheartened. It's very easy to say that right now
Yes.
because like, oh, I scored the score that I wanted. I used to get disheartened and like talk to my parents about it.
Yeah.
The one thing they said was that if you have not made any mistakes right now, and if you'd have gotten a full score on everything that you're trying to do while studying, you would have not even felt the need to study. And
Hmm.
then just go get the GMAT tomorrow.
Hmm.
So be prepared that if you're studying, it's good that you're getting things wrong. You at
Yeah.
least know where it all can you go wrong.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where you understand the gaps and fill it up, right? You identify it and you fix the issue, right?
Yeah.
So talking about, your mock phase, Kshitija. So once, you had done with the conceptual part, you had solved the cementing stage, you moved to the test readiness and the mocks, and you took a couple of mocks, right? So why don't you walk us through your mock phase? How many mocks did you take? What were the strategies that you were applying in your mocks?
Sure. So, the first time I think I took 2 mocks on eGMAT
Hmm.
and 3 mocks on official.
Hmm.
Okay, I think this is where I went wrong. I might have not really tried to apply any strategy when it comes to structuring my section in the first attempt.
Hmm.
And I didn't even think about it. I was like, okay, I'm very good at quant. So quant comes first. Like it's like a good way to get into the exam.
Yeah.
And also I'm faster at quant. So even if initially my mind is just aligning to the fact that an exam is started and I waste like 5 or 10 minutes, I
Hmm.
will still complete the section. And then I'll do verbal because verbal I find the hardest. And then data insights. It's fun. I can do it in the end. And what
Mm.
happened is that verbal did not go the way I wanted. Quant definitely went amazing. I got an 88. Verbal did not go the well I wanted, and I got a 79.
Mm.
And that really affected data insights.
Yeah.
Like
And
I was
just to
just
clarify that we are talking about your first attempt, the one where you got a 645 here.
yes,
Yeah.
and it really affected my data insight. So I think the
Yeah.
second time I was giving a lot more mocks. I think we had discussed this. I'm going to be giving an mock every alternate day,
Yeah.
and we had also discussed the concept of strategy then.
Yeah.
And we then the second time I moved switched data insights and verbal. I did data insights first. I did verbal later. Quant still remained the first. It was quant, DI, verbal,
Mm.
and by then I was also not like I was by then I was also good at verbal. But yeah, I know like we had discussed like different things. I tried different things in my mock. I think I scored the best when I did the
One
QDI.
verbalist.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we just decided to stick with it.
Yes.
Multiple other things I think a person should focus on in mocks is A, take it as it's a real exam.
Mm.
And if it's a real exam, you're going to be caught off guard and you're going to be wanting to do it without interruptions, firstly.
Mm.
Um, this is going to sound very dumb, but the official mocks has a way to pause them.
Mm.
So the first time, if I got super overwhelmed, I would
Mm.
just pause it and then sit for 3 minutes, gather myself, then resume the exam. I mean, you're not going to be doing that for the actual exam.
Yeah.
Another very, very, very important thing is letting go.
Mm.
I was so bad at that the first time. If I'm not getting something, somehow the way we think is I want to get every question I solve right. But it's
Yeah.
not about that. It's about getting as much accuracy as you can towards the overall, if you
Mm.
see, right?
Yes.
So the understanding that GMAT is also a section adaptive exam as much as it's a question adaptive. So if your previous section has gone well, there is a possibility that you might initially get super tough questions.
Mm. Yes.
And it's okay to let them go.
Yeah.
And that was the main important thing. I think I couldn't get to the last question in both verbal and DI the last time, and you had pointed it out that it it also really it's penalized a lot if you
Penalizes. Yes.
yeah.
Mm.
So definitely make sure you reach to the last question.
Mm.
And actually, that's very this like this third attempt that I gave, all three sections I could not just finish. I could also go and review a couple of answers. So
Beautiful.
all these
Yeah.
different things that you want to try, right? That hey, if I'm giving up that question, I'll just mark it on my scratch pad
Mm.
and then go back to it and solve it later. You definitely want to practice this in your mock test because do not think that something that you've not done in your mock test, all of a sudden in the exam, you're going to be able to do it.
Mm.
I don't think
Right.
that works. And another thing is when to give up. I mean, if
Mm.
you wasted 3 minutes solving a question and then you decide to give up, you already wasted 3 minutes.
Mm.
So being able to realize super early on, like potentially within a minute, that A, it's either going to take a lot of time, or B, I just don't know how to solve it.
Mm.
And quickly moving forward is very, very important. I think
Yeah.
letting go for me, it was the most toughest thing that I practiced a lot on the mocks. And I remember sending you screenshots of my time
Mm.
graph also
Yeah.
for us to really discuss if that's correct. And you want to make sure your pressure graph, sorry, it's called the pressure graph, the
Yes.
time pressure graph is really a good, in a like the small middle straight line kind of a
Yes.
thing. And in fact, it should be tapering down towards the end.
Yeah.
That
That
way,
means you have that excess time. Yeah.
yes. And that way, like if you're doing well, in the end, when you're going to get harder questions, you have much more time left.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
with that, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yes, but I think in the end of the time, like if you have that buffer time, it also gives you the opportunity to go back, right?
yeah.
Revisit a couple of questions. So in the actual test or in the mocks, was there a scenario where, you had a chance to go back and fix your bookmarked questions?
Yes. So the second time when I was giving every single mock exam, my agenda was I need that time.
Hmm.
I should plan it in a way that I have that time. So, like every person has a different way to maintain that scratch pad that you get.
Yeah.
to maintain it in a so I had that my cues like every end of every page. So when I first get it, I would write like time a minute cues at the bottom of every page, and I knew how many questions I'm going to solve on every page, and I would solve it right then and there and go ahead,
Mm.
and bookmark and all of that. Another thing, if you're bookmarking and have the plan of going back and revisiting your questions,
Yeah.
then also solve them in a very clean and clear way.
Mm.
You can't be like going back to a question and again starting from scratch, because in that entire bookmark you don't know where you solved it and you can't read it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Totally.
So
Yeah.
that is, yeah. Even in English, if you want, if towards the end you are like confused between two options or something, the way you're going to be structuring the notepad, have a way to mark out those two options.
Mm.
Like, okay, now I'm confused between A and D. Like, what's the point if I go back and then I again read A to E?
Yeah.
So that maintaining that bookmark, like sorry, the notepad and
Mm.
going about it that way to practice it in mocks. So yeah, I was coming back to the buffer time point. The the time cues that I had given for
Yes.
myself, I had ensured that in all three sections, I had 3 minutes left towards the end.
Mm.
Quant was never an issue. I had like a good 8 9 minutes left.
Mm.
DI and English both were quite
On the edge.
difficult.
Yeah. It was
On
not
the
that you
end.
weren't completing, but you didn't have a lot of time by the end.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
maybe I think I had like a minute
Yeah.
or something. Okay. In that I realized DI, MSR,
Mm.
and verbal long RCs, you also want strategies with that. Like
Mm.
sometimes MSRs, you know you're gonna do it. And MSR generally come this it is the first question for an MSR generally starts between question 1 to question 5.
Mm.
Generally.
Mm.
So you
Mm.
generally know if you're going to be able to do it, and if you're able to do it, and it's like a quick thing, okay, I know how to go about it, then 3 or 4 questions that follow, you're going to get them right.
Yeah.
Or then you're just going to struggle on all 4 of them. So also knowing when to leave MSR and when to not.
Mm.
And I also realized that if I'm leaving MSR to come back to it later, that means I cannot be leaving anything else.
Mm.
Because the 3 questions that I can change are already utilized in MSR.
Yep.
So then I
Yep.
can't be like, oh, this is a data insights thing. I made a, sorry, data sufficiency thing. I made a silly mistake. And then the next question, I'm like, oh, no, no, no. And then I'm marking to that can't happen.
Yeah.
So really like deciding upon all of these are such question-based things to solve a lot of mocks. I think the second time my entire focus was just solving mocks.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the
and
mocks also
trying.
gave you an understanding on how to manage your time, like
Yeah.
within per question as well as across the sections, right? Like you clearly said that you had an understanding that, okay, if I'm bookmarking this MSR, it's done, right? Now the next questions, I better just battle it out, right?
Yeah.
If that's so, I think that also comes with a lot of practice, right? And it also makes you a lot more calmer because you know that this is a situation that you might have encountered before, right? And it's something that just soothes you, and you know that, okay, I've done it before, I can replicate it, right?
Exactly, exactly. I agree. And being calm is such an important thing that only
Mm.
monks can have. That
Y-
really only monks can have.
yeah.
Because otherwise, like I remember the anxiety I had in the first attempt. Also talking about that and very off topic out of the preparation that you have to do. But I also think this is equally important. A biggest mistake I made in my first attempt was because I had less time. I just completely stopped going to the gym,
Mm.
completely stopped on like my morning meditation. It was my work and my study and my work and my study. By the end, I was exhausted also. The second time I realized that wait, all these kind of habits that you have
Yeah.
are necessary for the or just that calmness. I legit also went to the gym the morning before my exam, like the morning of my exam, sorry. So
Yeah.
that is one small thing and very out of like preparation material. But if anyone has like things that you do
Yeah.
that help calm down in your life,
Yes.
do keep doing them. Don't think like this exam and now I'm going to shut off on everything and I'm not going to socialize or meet anyone and all of that and just do this. Maybe it's just going to like get on your nerves by the
That's
end of it.
true. That's true. And I think that's a really, really important tip out there because, Kshitija, a lot of students tend to make this mistake. They make GMAT as their life. So what happens is they tend to put a lot of unnecessary pressure, right? So while they might have that potential, they're not able to perform because they see this as the ultimate goal, right? But whereas if you just make it as part of your life, where you're doing the routine things, what you would usually do, right? That helps you, keep you on track, such as for you, the gym part or, the meditation, which is something that personally helps you to keep on track, right? Be in the right mindset. And then when you put the efforts in GMAT, I think that combination works in a much more better way.
I totally agree. And then I also feel like for things like these, right, the last mile program or just having a mentor who can just talk to you is also very important. So yeah, definitely like it just like this short of my thought kind of a thing. That
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this, is this okay?
Yes.
Kind of a thing. But keep it like a very, but as you said, keep it like just a part of your life.
Yes.
Generally go about your life the way you otherwise go about. And it's an exam which is not like JEE, that if I don't do it well this time, I have to wait another year and invest a year in my life and do it again. I mean, you
Yeah.
can just sign up for it again.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
So,
That's okay. Right.
and
Now,
another thing, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, yeah, yeah. Please, please, please.
Another thing I feel like a lot of people had told me that hey, this isn't standardized exam.
Hmm.
There is just a level to which your score can improve.
Hmm.
The exam is said that way, and I really don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Like I really don't think that's true. And
Yes.
it's not only from my experience am I saying that because okay, like 6:45 to 7:05 is not even that big of a jump.
Hmm.
I am saying that from the hundreds of YouTube videos, hundreds is a little too much, I think. Some 20, 25 YouTube videos that I've watched, again, like eGMAT interviews. I remember this one guy specifically, I think he also stayed in the US, he got a 675.
Hmm.
His video I had watched, it's possible. If
Yeah.
people can make it
True.
over 100-point jump, it's seriously possible. So
Yes.
definitely someone is telling you it's standardized, how much can you improve? This is your upper limit, you have reached your
Yeah.
ceiling. I don't think any of that is true.
Yeah, completely, completely. I think I completely vouch for that because having worked with students, I have literally seen students go from that 400 to even that 700 plus, and actually students going from a 600 range to a 700. So it's all about what is the, effort that you're putting into this journey, how diligent you are, and how badly you want it at the end of the day, right? If you just keep your eyes at the target, I think it's very achievable, right? Even for you, see, at this point, when you got that 645, you realize that what's going wrong in verbal,
Yeah.
right? And you put that conscious effort that no, this time around, I really need to make some changes. I cannot be taking it as casually. And I think that's what made a difference. So at this point, when we look at your results, your verbal is the highest. Your verbal is a V88 when compared to,
Imagine that. Yeah.
right?
No, no, touch wood. But I agree, exactly. And I really thought verbal have reached my ceiling. I
Hmm.
really thought 82 would be like my max ceiling.
Yeah.
I really, really don't think that.
Yes.
For,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
And that jump is very much possible. And talking about that again, and that being your end goal, if that like some kind of a score is your goal
Yes.
to some college that you want to, because I'll be honest, I really, really want to make it to a good college because like
Yes.
I'm passionate about that. So if that is your goal and that's like something in your mind, really pre-plan. Don't do what I did. Like from the first time that I enrolled on the platform to my second attempt was less than 2 months.
Hmm. Yeah.
Seriously, do not do that. Okay, it really depends personality by personality. I think I work good in pressure. So
Hmm.
the pressure really is that drive. If I am given a month to do the same thing versus a week, I know I'll put in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you are different and if you are much more like more time means more effort for
Hmm.
you and
Hmm.
much more planning and more ways to manage your anxiety and stress and making sure that GMAT is just a part of your life and not everything. All of that, please take that time.
Yeah. Right.
Do
Right. Each one to their own because the journey differs, right? From person to person. Heading to your test date, Kshitija, because while you were giving the test, did you have a feeling that it's going as planned and it's going to be all rosy in the end? So why don't you
it.
walk us through your test? Like, what was your experience and what was the sequence that you followed? And, give us the intricacies of each of the sections while you were going through the test.
Okay. So luckily for me, not even luckily, I forgot to say there are two centers in Pune.
Hmm.
But the center in which I gave my first attempt, I made sure I again booked that one. So there's like
Hmm.
zero. Like I know where I have to go. I know how it's like. Everything was good. Um, so that was good. I settled in. I started with Quant. Quant actually went the way I wanted. I got enough time to go back. There were questions that I had, three questions that I had highlighted
Hmm.
as questions that I know how to solve, but they're going to take a considerable amount of time. I could go back and I think correct two of them. The third I couldn't reach to, or
Hmm.
something like that, if I remember correctly. Then came data insights. Data insights, I personally just knew if I'm doing it right or wrong. Like it just is a section that comes, like, I really like it. It comes naturally to me.
Hmm.
So I knew I'm not doing good. At
Hmm.
least till the point that I wanted to. Because in my mocks and data insights, surprisingly, I was scoring like 86
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then things. So 82 in data insights for me was not
Yeah. It
what
was
I
a slight letdown. Yeah. Surely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had decided that the break that I'm going to take, I'm going to let my feeling decide
Hmm.
when I need to take it. So quant went well. I knew I was in a good headspace. I started with data insights right after. Then I was like, okay, wait. While I'm talking about that, another thing I really want to point out, little off topic again. Uh, Sitting through a 2.5 hour exam and just giving it with 100% of your focus is not an easy thing,
Hmm.
especially because everyone gives it way out of college.
Hmm.
There might be very few who are still giving it when they are in undergrad and pre-planning for the future. I mean, kudos to those people.
Yeah.
But majority people give it way outside of college, also in an era where we are used to checking Instagram and stuff every half an hour, even if we are into deep work.
Hmm.
So, um, somehow for me, my focus level used to just drop down after 1.5 hours.
Hmm.
So I don't know what can help you. It might be meditation, it might be deactivating social media, it might be trying to keep your phone away for like 4 hour slots that you are studying, whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Hmm.
trying to build that kind of moment, like not just that's not momentum, that's called like trying to build that I don't know what's it called? What's the correct word?
Would just the focus zone for yourself, if you have to put
Trying
it
to, yeah,
across. Yeah.
yeah.
Just
Is
eliminate the distractions as much as possible and, get into that zone. Yeah.
correct. And a zone that is where you're very present in that present. So
Hmm.
even if I've just skipped a question, I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Even if I just went through a section that didn't go as well as I wanted, I'm not thinking about it in this present when I'm solving this question.
Yeah.
That is something I did struggle with the first time around. So that is also something. So yeah, coming back to the data insights thing, I did went through the section and it did not go the way I wanted it to go. And
Hmm.
I was well aware of it. So then I decided to take that break. And that break was more of a self-talk, like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's still one third of your score, and you
Yeah.
have another one third. So do not ruin this. I mean, you did study a lot for that verbal, and then I was just thinking about this meditation camp, and I was like, you want to leave tomorrow, right? Do you not want to leave tomorrow? So I was like, okay. And then I went into verbal. I stepped into it again. Thankfully, with all like the things that are done outside of just prep that
Hmm.
helped me maintain that focus, I knew verbal went well.
Yeah.
And towards the end, when I had to hit that submit test thing, I was kind of hopeful. Okay, I was not sure about 700 plus, but I
Hmm.
was still hopeful there's going to be some push
Yeah.
from six, maybe say 685,
Hmm.
695, who
Yeah.
knows, something. So I was hoping for that. When I got the score, quant was a letdown because from the last attempt of 88, it dropped down to 85.
Hmm.
So I was like, wait, I thought it went well. What went wrong? Might be silly mistakes. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, overall, just that seven something something is what I
Yes.
wanted. And I
Yes.
saw it. And I was very happy. So yeah, that was my walking through the test day. Another some important things I would say is just I was very, very, very happy about the way I structured using a scratch pad.
Hmm.
Me writing down my time cues, me striking it off of meeting it, whatever I decided that if I'm not meeting a timestamp at some set of like 5 questions, I'm going to solve in these 10 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever. I'm not
Yeah.
meeting, then I would have my own mental cue. Like this, all I had practiced during mock tests, like a own mental cue that in the next set of 5 questions, you want to really rush. If possible, you also want to just skip on a question and
Hmm.
bookmark, but you want to rematch that. And all of those things, I really followed them the way I wanted to follow them the second time. The first time, I would say, whenever I was not meeting a time queue, I would just sit and feel bad about it. Be like, oh
Mm,
my God, shit, what am I going to do? So I think the second time around, it really, that part of the exam. And
mm.
I also knew that now if I have to give Quant and DI one after the other, I wouldn't get a chance to change my
Yeah.
note. So how do I
Yes.
want to use the notepad so that I can do both of them on
Mm.
one? It's like a very small thing, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, these things I'd really taken time noting down for myself, and I could follow that. Is something I was really happy about. I
Yeah.
would have still even more score, but then like that's like never ending.
Yes,
But
yes. That drive, that, slight push, that can I do that? Yeah. That's always going to be there, right?
I actually I called my mother the drive back home. It's a long one. My parents were excited. They were like, meet us midway, we'll go for dinner. So when I talked to them, I was excited that here we go. And then when I saw them, by then the score had sunken in, right? The
Yeah.
next question I asked them is, if 20 more points I get, it will be 100% or something. Do you think I should go for it? And my parents are like, all chill, dude. Like, work on your essays. What are you doing?
Yeah,
So
true, true. Yes. Now, Kshitija, when you look back in your journey, because like you said, right, you achieved that score and it's all, it's a happy moment and it's sunk in now, right? But it's been a while, after the test. So when you literally look back at your journey, what would be the key takeaways that you feel that, some of the important takeaways that you would want to share with the other GMAT aspirants?
Genuinely do not underestimate the importance of an error log.
Mm,
Watch the videos of maintaining error logs. Like if I can even share my screen and show my error logs, but like we can do that towards the end. Um, Genuinely do not underestimate that. Keep referring and also another mistake I made the first time is that I kept the day prior to my exam as a day that I'm going to go through my error logs.
mm,
I do not think that's how error logs work. It's something I realized later. You are supposed to check onto them once in every 2 days or once in every
yeah.
3 days, or whatever. Make it a very consistent habit. It can't be like just a day prior to the exam. It's not like a revision notebook that you're creating. So definitely do that. Secondly, at the end of the day, the questions that you're going to get on the exam, you've never seen them before.
Mm,
The max you could have seen are similar-ish questions or questions that make you think in the same way. So the entire um, approach towards an exam like this is yes, first go through the material.
mm,
Uh, a structured material is very important. So, of course, like eGMAT will really help because you really don't want to just like start doing. However, while I say that, there are some people, I know some of my friends who just gave like mocks, corrected what they're going wrong, mock, corrected what they're going wrong, like 10 mocks into it, they scored a good score. Every
mm,
person is different. Whatever you want to do, first the theory or whatever. But after that, do not underestimate the importance of just exposing yourself to varied questions.
mm,
As many questions as you can. And that's the only way. And then don't get bogged down by getting things wrong. Like
mm.
that is the entire point. You want to get things wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is the second thing. The Actually, I said four things, okay? The third, sorry for that, but the third would be importance of marks
Mm,
and practicing your strategy. Even the smallest thing, like how you want to maintain a scratch pad or your time management, or I don't know how you want to practice skipping on questions or anything. You
yeah.
are not going to be able to just randomly get up and do it
Mm,
on the exam unless and until you've not practiced it multiple times.
mm,
So please do that. Like mocks not just for getting an end score, but mocks for practicing your script strategy. And practically at the beginning of the mock is possible because I used to do that, maintain an Excel sheet with like mock one, and then what is the strategy you're thinking you want to incorporate in your practice in verbal, quant, and AI? Actually write it down
mm,
and intentionally you work upon it at the end of the mock recheck that
mm,
this was a strategy I wanted to make sure like do incorporate in my quant section. Did I actually do it?
mm.
So be very intentional on the strategy part also. It's not just about the theory.
Yeah.
And the fourth thing I would say is like, yeah, things outside of the preparation, things that calm you down, things that
Yeah.
energize you, things that keep you happy throughout the journey. For everyone, the length of the journey is going to vary. So do
Yes.
not keep it your entire life, because if it goes on for 6 months, you have to give 3 attempts or 4 attempts. Like seriously, you can't be putting 6 months of your life not doing anything else and being unhappy about this. So yeah, those I think are my four takeaways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have summarized the entire GMAT journey really well because I feel that, the most important things from, keeping your mindset in the right track, right? Doing things that, really give you that peace so that you can maintain that focus on your prep, right? Secondly, talking about the mocks, how do you strategize it? Because I totally remember how cautious you were with your mocks, right? And you were so particular about what are the questions you were getting wrong and those regular check-ins that you were doing in the final stages. So I knew what kind of depth analysis that was going into each of the mocks before you jump into the next one, right? So I feel that all these small efforts that you have actually put into your journey have really paid it off, right? So on yeah, so on that note, Kshitija, I think I would really like to thank you for taking out the
I
time
would like
today
to thank you.
and doing this with us because I feel that it makes a lot of difference coming from a student, who has been there, done that. Like you said, that, you at a point saw someone's journey on on the YouTube channel, and you were like, okay, this student could do it. And I'm sure when people look up at your journey, they would also feel inspired because there are a lot of instances that we had discussed, right? The ups and the downs, and I'm sure it's going to be really, really insightful. So thank you for doing this again. And from the entire GMAT team, I just wish you all the best, and we'll all
Thank
keep our
you.
fingers crossed and wait for your admit soon.
I will keep you posted on that. And honestly, thank you for being an amazing and a patient mentor. Because when I just like shoot out thoughts to people, I can just randomly email someone a lot. So thank you.
No, I think it was a lovely journey working with you. Although we had a short sprint journey, like in the end, a couple of days, but I think it was really worth it. And I'm glad that I could be part of it. That's all, right? So thanks for being
Thank,
a great mentee.
thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.